and then we'll get started. So welcome once again to the ClearAdmit MBA application overview webinar series. I'm Graham. Let's maybe do some intros while we're letting more people log in here. So I'm Graham. I'm the co-founder of ClearAdmit. I'm going to moderate today's session. And that's probably about all you really need to know about me, because we're really here to hear from our esteemed panel of admissions folks. So let's introduce them. We'll just go one by one. First, I want to welcome Nicole. She is, oh, we got to move the slides ahead. Here we go. Nicole Faraday, who's the Senior Associate Director of Admissions at Berkeley Haas. Hey, Nicole.
Hey, Graham. Nice to be here. Thanks.
Yeah, it's great to have you. Next up, we're also going to hear today from Morgan Griffin. She's an Associate Director over at Duke's Fuqua School of Business. Welcome, Morgan.
Hi, Graham. Thank you for having me, and hello to everyone joining us today.
Yeah, it's great to have you. We also have Melissa Rapp with us, who is the Associate Dean of Graduate Admissions over at Emory Goizueta Business School. Did I say it right, Melissa? I've been working on this.
You did. You're doing really
Yes.
well. You've gotten a lot better.
Yes.
I think it's time for me to send you a new headshot. But yes, I am Melissa Rapp, and it's great to be here and great to see everyone who's joined us.
Yeah, excellent. Thanks for joining us. Next up, we've got Anne Kilby, who is the Assistant Dean of MBA Admissions over at Georgetown University's McDonough School of Business. Welcome, Anne.
Thank you, Graham. Thanks, everyone.
The building behind you on the Georgetown campus always makes me think of Harry Potter. I don't know if anyone else ever tells you that, but it just has that look to it, right? And then last but not least, we have Stacy Battis, who is the director for full-time MBA program over at the University of Texas at Austin's McCombs School of Business. Hi, Stacy.
Hey, Graham. Hey, everybody. Welcome.
All right. Welcome aboard, everyone. It sounds like there's still a few people jumping on, but we're going to dive in because we have a lot to cover. This session is really designed for those of you who are thinking about applying to business school and who just want to get a sense for the application process and what these programs kind of look for, as well as just to learn a bit more about these schools, because as you'll hear from our panelists, it's really important to understand the programs that you're applying to. It just will make for more compelling applications when you go through that process. So the first question that I'm going to do a little roundtable on, we'll ask each of our panelists about, is I just would love to hear a little bit about your program's core values, and if possible, like how do those values that the program or the institution holds highly inform the way you kind of approach the admissions process? So Nicole, let's talk a little bit about Berkeley Haas. What are some of the values, and yeah, how does that sort of influence the way you do admissions?
Yeah, sure. It's a great question. And I think all of us have our own kind of core values that we have at each of our schools. At Berkeley, it is something that we really hold closely. And it is something that we talk about a lot as our core values, and we codify them in what we call our defining leadership principles at Haas. We have 4 of them. So I'll kind of walk through them each. There is the first one, which is question the status quo. So we really encourage individuals to, challenge existing norms and really foster innovation and growth at Haas and obviously beyond. The second would be confidence without attitude. So we want to, while we promote self-assurance and confidence, but we also emphasize humility and respect for others. So obviously that comes into play in the classroom, in the community, as well as in society. The third would be student always. So really we want to reflect that commitment to continuous learning and growth, and recognize that everyone has something to not only learn, but also teach each other. And it's really important in our community there. And then the last is beyond yourself. So we really encourage individuals to prioritize the greater good and contribute to the well-being of their communities and society as a whole. So these are 4 principles that we found to be really relevant in our community at Haas. And so about 12, 13 years ago, they were codified into these 4 principles that we talk about a lot, because they do actually have a lot of meaning. And like I said, we really hold closely at Haas. And really, these these principles aren't just bullets on our website. You can really feel each of the principles throughout the Haas community. From students, faculty, staff, we believe so strongly in them that they're actually like carved into the sides of our buildings.
Oh,
So
wow.
there's no changing them anytime soon. We have to build a new building. And as our admissions committee, we use these principles to guide our admissions process. So we look for a lot of these principles in our applicants, both in subtle ways, like in a letter of recommendation, or maybe an essay that you've written, or in more concrete examples, like through volunteer opportunities that you're a part of. But we really value these principles at Haas. They're very important to our culture. So we will be expecting to see that in our applicants.
Got it. Okay, super helpful. Thanks for walking through all of that. Morgan, how about at Fuqua? What are the sort of some of those principles and core values, and yeah, how do they inform admissions?
Yeah, so much like Nicole talked about with Haas, we also have our 6 paired principles. I won't go through them all because there's such an easy way that we define these paired principles. A lot of times when you're talking with various members of the Fuqua community, and we're really big on community, you'll hear this phrase, Team Fuqua, mentioned. And it's not just because we love basketball. We do love basketball, but it just goes much further than the basketball court in Cameron Indoor Stadium. But we really do believe in leadership and teamwork, collaborative ambition, impactful stewardship, collective diversity. Those are all things that are really important to us. So we really believe in working together. Our program is structured in a very team-based learning environment from day one of orientation through the time that they graduate, and probably even as alum, we see that teamwork still developing and still being there. We really look for people to bring what is unique and what they're passionate about to the classroom. So we have a very diverse student body and a student body that values that diversity. We've had professional ballerina dancers in our program, NFL football players, consultants, accountants, doctors, you name it. And so we really do believe in this. And so the way we just define the way we work, of working together toward a common good, is this idea of Team Fuqua. You'll hear us mention that's a very Team Fuqua thing, or I believe in Team Fuqua, or go Team Fuqua. And what we're really saying is we want to work together to, show that we value the collective diversity that we have within our team, work together toward that common good, while supporting things that are important to us. And so also, as Nicole mentioned, all of our paired principles, they are listed on our hallway. So it's something that when our students walk to class every day, they pass by those. And it's just a constant reminder, and it's something that we truly live and breathe, from, the high up in the dean's cabinet all the way down to the people that, work in our cafes and make sure that our students get fed and everything. So, and how this plays into the admissions process is, since we are very team oriented, our admissions team really takes a lot of pride in going through applications. An entire team will look at your application. It's not just one person. And we really are looking for those unique qualities of people. So many times people say, I'm not an accountant, I'm not a consultant. How does that make my application look? And we really welcome things that make you unique, diverse, and know that when we admit those people, bring them into the class, that class is going to be so enriched because of those people and that learning experience that they'll be bringing to their classmates. So really, during the admissions process, we want to get to know you, what you're passionate about, what makes you tick. And, we work together as a team to really find those people that believe in our paired principles and want to join Team Fuqua.
Got it. Okay, super helpful. Melissa, how about you over at Goizueta?
There we
Oh,
go.
it looks like there you go.
There we are. Goizueta actually has 7 core values, and those are courage, integrity, accountability, rigor, diversity, team, and community. And I think everyone's familiar with how those things show up. I want to really focus on how we've created our application to identify those characteristics in our applicants. So we went through an exercise several years ago to map those core values to characteristics that we would like our applicants to have. So a good, easy example is rigor. This is tied a lot to academics and intellectual ability. And so that's the characteristic that we're looking for in applicants. The places that we look for that are in your transcripts and standardized test scores. Something like courage is not as straightforward, and that's why we ask for things like essays and offer you the opportunity to do an interview so that you can tell us about a time where you demonstrated courage or integrity. So I think that's a really important part of our process, is to have thought about the values, what characteristics applicants would demonstrate if they agree with those values, and then put into places in the application where you can demonstrate that. And so that's kind of how that all works here at Goizueta.
Yeah, and you just hearing all you talk about this, you're reminding me that I think sometimes people feel like the stuff on the websites is sort of lip service. Like schools have these, values and they put them out there. But the fact that you guys are literally sitting down as admissions teams and thinking about how do our values map to each specific component of the application process should be a really important clue to everyone joining us today, that this stuff matters and that you should really think about getting to know each of these programs' core values and thinking through how your application materials might bring those out on your side as well. So let's keep going though. Anne, tell us a little bit about McDonough and just what are the core values and how they inform the admissions process.
Absolutely. And Graham, I'm so glad the point you just made. I hope what candidates are hearing is that something that differentiates each of our programs are our core values and how that plays into not only your admissions process, but our communities and cultures. And it's so important to find a university setting where you feel there's that mutual fit, where you will be successful within the community that we've designed. So at Georgetown University, so we were founded in 1789, and we are the oldest Jesuit institution in the United States. It is part of our founding, it is part of our DNA to have the Jesuit tradition, which is being service-mindedness. So our values are instilled in us from that founding date. Cura Personalis is our mantra, is our ethos, which is Latin for care of the whole person, so that you can be seen for yourself and you can see others as themselves, as a whole person. And so how these values really inform not only admissions, but our culture and our curriculum. So on the admissions front, ethical leadership is how we see that service-mindedness in action. And so we look for evidence of that service mindedness, ethical leadership within your essays. We're very intentional with our essay design in terms of really helping to pull out those examples from you. And then in our interviews, we have very targeted questions that help us understand this fit assessment, this value alignment as well. And then, of course, in your recommendations, again, very intentional in the questions that we're asking for them there to really help us assess your fit alignment. Because our culture here at Georgetown McDonough is unique not only for business schools, definitely in US business schools, against a certain stereotypical culture. And it's not for everyone. And we want to make sure that you will thrive in our culture that is very much about serving your fellow person and serving the world. So it's very impact driven. That's why the first course that you take, and this will be my last point, in the program is Leading Teams for Performance and Impact, where we cover things like conflict and civility, diversity and inclusion. We really ingrain these foundational subsets of ethical leadership into our curriculum from the get-go to make sure everyone is on the same page. So service-mindedness is what we believe here at Georgetown McDonough. So I hope that's what comes away.
Okay. Yeah, very helpful. Stacey, you've been very patient. Tell us a little bit about Texas McCombs and what are the core values and how do they play into the admissions process?
Yeah, ours are really boiled down to 4 simple words, and that is human-centered and future-focused. And what I really like about those words is that it does put the human first. And I think that really aligns with what we value at McCombs. We definitely believe that the culture and the community of our student body and our faculty and staff are what makes us special. And so I think that really plays into your experience in terms of what we're trying to do for our students is really not just teach them how to work at a business and be successful or even run a business and be successful, but really thinking about how organizations really influence the people that they're serving. So that's something that I think as you're crafting your application, you know, I always like to tell students, you don't necessarily just want to talk about what you want to do and what you want to get out of the program, but how you want to serve your constituents in the future and or how you're going to contribute to the community at McCombs as well. The future focus piece, I guess I didn't touch on, Graham, so let me touch on that. I think that really goes to, you know, of course, in an MBA program, you try and be as nimble as possible. And we realize that business is literally changing on the daily. And I think as technology advances, it even happens more quickly than it used to. So one thing that we really try to do and our values remind us of at McCombs is to make sure that we're innovating our curriculum, the research that our professors are doing, and the students can get involved in that as well. And partnering with organizations that are doing really cool things in the Austin community as well. So.
Got it. Excellent. So yeah, I think this has been really helpful for those tuning in, just to have a better feel for, you know, the sort of values at each of your programs, and again, how they play into the admissions process. So I hope everyone's taking notes, and actually you don't really need to, because we're recording this, and we'll send you all a link so you can watch it again if you so choose. Let's move on though to the next portion of today's session. And that is, I just want to talk a little bit about the application to business school. And you know, each school has their own process, and you need to go onto their websites and learn about that process. And frankly, because the first deadlines for the coming admission cycle really won't be until the fall, many of these schools won't quite have things, you know, up on their site and ready to roll for the new cycle until, you know, June, July, somewhere in there. So stay tuned. But in general, most schools are going to have you fill out an application form. There will be an application fee, although some schools provide waivers for that in certain instances. You'll have to send, you know, your undergraduate college transcripts and things to show how you did academically. Programs require a standardized test, although again, in some cases there are waivers. You normally will submit a resume. Most programs have essays. UT Austin McCombs is a bit of an exception that they have a cover letter that you have to write, although again, not so far afield from sort of a goals type statement or an essay. And then letters of recommendation. Interviews are another part of this process. And again, in some instances, a language exam for those who are non-native English speakers, although again, that does vary from school to school based on, you know, whether you studied undergraduate in English or other factors that may come into play there. But those are sort of the basics that go into an application. And what I wanted to do now, though, is actually have each of our panelists talk a little bit about their application, just so that we can understand what makes it unique. Because again, here on this list, it seems like, oh, they're all sort of the same. But if we move to the next slide, we'll see that, you know, in the case of, you know, like we're going to start with Berkeley, I guess. But in the case of Berkeley, there may be some, you know, everyone has their little tweaks, you know, different types of questions they ask and et cetera. So actually, if we go back a slide, we'll see the question that I'm going to ask each of our panelists to sort of talk through is, you know, like I'm saying, you have these requirements. It all looks pretty similar, but what should we know about your application? What makes it different? So we'll start again with Nicole at Berkeley Haas. And again, we put up on the screen here a list of what we think are your components, knowing that they may fluctuate a little bit as we get into the summer and you finalize your application for next season. But so let's start with you. Yeah, let's go through. What do you want to highlight for us?
Yeah, thanks, Graham. So yeah, at Berkeley, it's, you know, basically, you know, most of the components are going to be similar to other schools. I think the highlights in uniqueness are going to be, we do still require a standardized test, and it's the GMAT or the GRE. We don't have a preference on them. We do have 2 written essays. Currently, in our application this year, the essays were what makes you feel alive when you're doing it and why. And then the second essay is to describe your short and long-term career goals. I think those will essentially be very similar essays for next year. I'll just leave it at that. We
Okay.
do have a video essay. I believe that will also continue next year. It goes back to our defining leadership principles that I talked about earlier. It is basically a short, like less than 2-minute video. It's, you know, to briefly introduce yourself and then, you know, choose one of the 4 defining leadership principles that you most resonate with, and give an example in how you implement that in your, you know, professional, personal life. We do require 2 letters of recommendation. We use the common letter. And then we also require TOEFL and IELTS for non-native English speakers who did their undergrad education in a language other than English. And then interview might be a little bit different for us. It's by invitation only, so we do not interview every applicant that comes through to Berkeley Haas. We typically send out interview invitations anywhere from like 2 weeks past submission deadline all the way until maybe 2 weeks before decisions go out.
Okay,
So
so kind of on a
it's just,
rolling
on a rolling
basis, yeah.
basis for interview
Okay.
invitations.
So you mentioned you don't interview everyone, but to be accepted, you do go through the interview process?
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so if
That
you
makes
do get
sense.
an interview invitation, that's a good sign.
Yes. Okay. Great. Very helpful. I remember that essay. I hope you keep it. I love that essay. The first one you mentioned, what makes you feel alive when you're doing it and why. So that's
Yes,
fun.
I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure that'll stay because we love
All right.
reading them
Wait,
too.
you heard it here first. Obviously, we're putting everyone on the spot because it's a little bit early to be finalizing applications yet. But in any event, let's move on. Let's hear from Morgan now about the sort of application components at Duke. Yeah, Morgan, anything you want to call our attention to? Yeah, what makes your process a little bit different?
Yeah, so we take a very holistic approach in looking at your application. So when someone's completing our application, there are like different sections. And so we look at each of those sections equally. So I think the idea of is my GMAT or GRE or executive assessment, which we accept, and I will not be changing this year, those tests, does that outweigh things? And no, each component is weighted equally. So I think keep in mind that, don't put all your eggs in one basket in one component, because I have seen plenty of previously with the legacy GMAT, the 770 GMAT scores, and have said no to those people and said yes to people with, scores in the 500s. So really your application tells a whole story about you. And I think that's really important. One thing that I know for sure that will not change, and I'll highlight because it's really unique to us. I think it's true for a lot of schools. We all have our own unique essays, but we do have the 25 things about yourself essay. That will not be changing. And actually, for background on that, that started here in the admissions office as a way for us to get to know people when they were new to our team. And it was just a great way to form connections, because when that email goes out, everyone stops what they are doing and goes and looks at that person's random 25 things. And you'll start, when you send it out, you start getting all these emails back of, oh, I did something similar. That's so cool. And it's just a way to form connections. And that's so important in our community. So we want people to have fun with that. They can include pictures. I've seen really creative ones. I've seen ones that have made me cry, ones that have made me laugh, ones that have inspired and changed me even. So that have made me stop and think and reflect and just feel very honored that someone shared those facts with me. So that's one that won't be changing. One thing that we did add last year, and it will be coming back this year again, and it's completely optional, is providing a space for people to talk about their lived experience. That is there something that has shaped who they are today? So that could be their upbringing, their education, the work they've done, maybe something personal, maybe something work related, but it's really a free space for you to share something about yourself that maybe we're not going to get from other components of your application. And we tried it in this past admission cycle, and there was so many times that when I was reading someone's application, when they had included something, it really was like this missing piece that just made me fall in love with the applicant and say, wow, this is just incredible in the context of everything. And knowing this is someone we really want to join Team Fuqua. So I think that's really, but we also understand that it's very personal. And so it's not a requirement, but it is there for people that maybe want to shed light on some things about their candidacy. We do only require one letter of recommendation, much like Berkeley Haas. We do use the common letter. We do prefer that come from your current manager or supervisor. I always say there's an asterisk at the end of that because there's also 1,000,001 scenarios where maybe that's not the best person to write your letter of recommendation. So feel free to reach out if you have any questions of does this person make sense. We do not require any language language exams. So that is a nice thing you don't need to worry about if you're an international applicant. We do have an application fee of $225, but it is waived if you join us for one of our events. So it's a great way for you not only to get insight into applying or into the daytime MBA program, but we can then waive you a fee and save you $225, which when you're applying to business school and paying for business school, you'll take the $225. Interview is required for admission. And so we do not interview everybody, and that is a requirement in order to be admitted. And then what is one thing that's really unique about us is our early action round. So we have early action and then rounds 1, 2, 3, and 4. Early action is a binding decision. So when you actually go to submit your application in early action, a window pops up and says, if you're agreeing that if you are admitted to Fuqua, you will, be enrolling. And so it is a binding decision. I think it's a great round for people that have done their research or are joining webinars and learning about the MBA admissions process in May and have decided that Fuqua is the school for them and that's where they want to be. And then, with the early action, you find out in October. So you get the rest of the time before our program starts in July of the following year to just relax and enjoy a little bit.
All right, excellent. Let's move on and hear from Melissa over at Emory. Tell us a little bit, about something that makes your process unique.
Sure. So we do have a lot of the same things that you'll see other schools asking for. The standard online application form, we do encourage you to go ahead and you can look at what we currently have up there. A lot of things will remain the same. Our essays are under review right now. This past year, they've been about a personal leadership experience, kind of a story opportunity for you to share something that's been really impactful for your life. And our second essay was around telling us which core value resonates with you. And so this was an opportunity for candidates to really talk about their own personal values and how they relate to Goizueta's values. Our video essay is a component, and I know some other schools on the call also have those. For Goizueta, this is kind of an opportunity to let your personality shine. Sometimes it's hard to, on paper or virtually on an online application, to really get your personality to show. And the video essay, while it's short, does provide enough time for us to see your enthusiasm or your energy, or just really to see another side of you. Those questions, a lot of times candidates are worried about the video essay question, that they're going to be really hard. These are what we call cocktail questions. And so they're things like, if you had an extra hour in the day, what would you do with it? Or what's the best book you've read in the past year? So questions that you really should be able to answer just off the cuff without much problem. You do have an opportunity, if a question does pop up and you're like, I didn't read a book this year, you can choose another question. So don't worry about that at all. We do ask for 2 letters of recommendation. We do ask for one to be from a current supervisor, and the other is really up to you. It can be someone that you've worked with on a community service organization with, another member that you've worked with in your current organization, or someone from a past organization. For non-native English speakers, and similar to Berkeley Haas, if you had your undergraduate taught in English, you're not required a language exam. Otherwise, we do accept those listed. Our interviews are also by invitation. Those are conducted by members of the admission team. We don't use students or alumni for our interviews. And we do think of it as an opportunity for us to learn a little bit more about you, but also for you to bring questions too. So we do encourage candidates to ask questions during those interviews. We're currently doing the majority of our interviews via Zoom still because of the convenience for both the admission team and the candidates. We offer a limited number of on-site interviews that are connected to our preview days, which happen in the fall. I do want to, again, just emphasize that we are not asking you for anything we don't use. All of these components are important ways for us to get to know you on paper, in person, through the interview, and then on the video essay as well. And it's a real joy for the admissions team to learn your story. And that's what we try to get to through these applications.
Excellent. Yeah. Thanks for walking through that and for letting us know that the essays may be to be determined in terms of the topics there. So we'll stay tuned. Next up, we've got Anne. Tell us a little bit about Georgetown McDonough and, your components, or, highlight whatever you want here that's kind of unique to you guys.
Absolutely. Thanks, Graham. So I'll hone in on the more unique aspects because I'm sure everyone's starting to notice some similarities across the schools. So the unique aspects for us, one would be the standardized test. We accept GMAT, GRE, executive assessment, or a waiver for the full-time candidates. You actually apply for the test waiver in advance of submitting your MBA applications, that going into the MBA application if you're approved or not. So that can help you make a more informed decision. For our part-time candidates for the Flex MBA and Flex MBA Online, you apply for the waiver within the MBA application. But the waiver criteria and the policy and process are all outlined on our website. And we hope it's as clear as possible so that you can go ahead and make a best guess if you're going to be approved or not. But it has to do with your academic history mainly. In terms of our essays, that's another unique aspect. We offer 3 different prompts. You choose the one that resonates with you, and also the one where you feel like you can be most strategic in what you're trying to convey. And I encourage candidates to think about the outcomes and let that inform the selection. What are you hoping to convey to us? And then which essay fits those goals the best? You'll see a theme across all of our essay topics of this service mindedness that I talked about in the last question. So they're very values centric because that aligns with who we are at Georgetown. And then the video essay is also unique for us. It is a 1-minute video where you are sharing with us 5 to 10 facts about yourself that go beyond your resume, that really help humanize your application. And why those facts are meaningful for you. So you love dogs, but do you love dogs because that's a way for you to volunteer and rescue and whatever it may be? Or do you love to cook because it's a way for you to bring people together around a table or to learn about other cultures? So it's getting to know what you value, how you spend your time, your interest, and why. So again, just in the application stage, even before we've even made it to the interview, we're getting to see you. You're putting a voice, a presence, a personality into your application assessment. Another unique aspect would be the interview. So our interview team is made up of admissions committee members and students, current students. So it's what we call a double blind interview, in that you do not know who's interviewing you until you either physically step into that room or you step into that Zoom room. And it's double blind because that person interviewing you has not read your application in advance. They only have your resume. So that prevents them from coming in with bias. They don't know that you have a stellar GPA, for example. They're able to get to know you through that conversation. So in prep, you want to make sure that you are prepared to either speak to a student or an admissions committee member so you can tailor your questions appropriately. Those are the unique aspects of Georgetown McDonough's application.
Thank you. Yeah, that's great. The video essay sounds like fun. Let's see. So then, Stacy, why don't you do the same with McCombs? And I feel like you're maybe going to go to the cover letter here because that is interesting and different. But tell us what you want to tell us about your process.
Yeah, thanks, Graham. And thanks everybody for being here. I think, as Graham said earlier, one of the challenges of applying to an MBA degree is that we are all a little bit different, even down to what tests we accept. Do we need an official transcript? Do we not? So please, please, please do your research, attend more events, get to know the process. So to highlight, I think the differences for Texas McCombs MBA application, I think the biggest one is that a couple of years ago, we really kind of revamped our entire admissions process to try and be more equitable for all applicants and more accessible for all applicants. And so what we really did was we stripped out the invite-only interview for many reasons. We we stripped that out, and we also stripped out the, you could either write an essay or do a video. As fun as those were, it wasn't really equitable. Some people were sending us like music videos, which is really cool, but again, maybe not everyone has the access to do that. So now, rather than do an invite-only interview, we have essentially a video assessment and an optional virtual interview with the student, which is the peer interview there at the bottom. So really, those two things combined is really what gets us what we need to evaluate when we're evaluating your communication skills, your research on the program, and your interview skills, right? So the video assessment for us, it's going to be an asynchronous video assessment that everyone does. So again, it's not invite only. You'll have about 7 days to do it after you submit the application. And there are 5 questions, about 90 seconds each for you to answer. And then the peer interview, which again, there on the bottom is optional, but highly recommended, is a 20 to 30 minute virtual interview, only virtual, again, equity, virtual interview with a current student. And I think another difference for our peer interview is that you can select who you're interviewing with. And part of the reason we decided to go that route was we see this 20 to 30 minutes more for you to interview us. I mean, of course, we're going to ask you a couple of interview questions, and your interviewer will have the opportunity to provide, notes from that interview to the committee. But at the end of the day, we really want you to use those 20 to 30 minutes to get to know us. And so being able to chat with the current student, maybe with similar interests or a similar background, may be beneficial for you to learn a little bit more about McCombs. And then lastly, yeah, Graham mentioned the cover letter. So TBD if we're keeping it, so don't write it yet, but ours is a little bit different for the cover letter in that rather than write an essay, we really wanted you to approach it. The way that I like to frame the cover letter is like, let's say we're meeting in committee and the dean walks into the committee room and says, hey, tell me about Alexis, who you're looking at right now. And we can pull up the cover letter, and that's a really nice snapshot of who you are, why you want an MBA, and why you want it at McCombs, as well as how you'll contribute. So think of it as a nice little bow that you're wrapping up your application to McCombs with. But yeah, I think those are the big differences, Graham. So I'll toss it back to you.
Okay. All right, perfect. Yeah, I guess the cover letter, you could think of it also, ultimately everyone who's going to business school is going to look for a job afterwards,
Yeah.
and they may come in handy to be sort of able to do that. So
Absolutely.
that's like an interesting feature of your process. So we're running a little long, but we have a handful of questions that are audience submitted questions that I want to kind of run through. I also just want to take a moment to let everyone know that as soon as we wrap the main portion of this, each of our panelists are going to bounce off into these little Zoom breakouts. So if you have questions for any of our panelists, you can head off in there with them afterwards. So they're going to stick around and take your questions. So hang on. I see some people have been posing a couple of questions in the chat. So hang on to those questions for now. Let's go. We're going to just run through these kind of rapid fire, general kind of admissions questions. Nicole, we're going to start with you. This is a question about standardized testing. And, the GMAT and the GRE, which, all of you take both exams, they're kind of different tests, but what would you say to a candidate, Nicole, who's asking you like, well, which one do I take? And it sounds like all of you are sort of indifferent, but any advice or thoughts on this?
My short answer is always take the one you think you'll do better on.
Good
And
one.
truthfully, if you are unfamiliar with both the exams, I would look into them, do a little bit of research, take some practice tests, and honestly, probably take the one that you feel more comfortable with, answering those questions. If you have taken one or the other and you feel like you are not doing well in that particular exam, maybe try the other one. It's like Graham said, we don't have a preference in which exam you submit. We do require one of them. I know some of my colleagues have some other options you can also take. So take that into consideration as well with the different schools you're applying to. But as far as Berkeley Haas goes, we will look at each of the exams and even each of the GMAT and GRE has changed recently. So
Yes.
that's a little bit different as well. The GMAT in particular has changed quite a bit as far as their format goes, as well as their scoring. So we're still actually learning ourselves, what that means and how to necessarily evaluate those new scores. But We are looking primarily like at the quantitative reasoning scores, just to see that there are some quantitative abilities that you can use in the curriculum of the program. So we are looking at the total score, but we probably will be looking a little bit more closely at the quantitative reasoning in both the GMAT and the GRE. And yeah, again, as far as which test to take, it's just a matter of which one you feel more comfortable with and which one you feel like you could be more successful with.
Got it. I'm really glad you mentioned the quantitative side because as someone who did an MBA myself, I can still recall the the first semester, first year is quite quantitatively rigorous as you go through core courses in accounting, statistics, operations, even marketing, finance, economics. I mean, all these things you need some math skills. So
Mhm.
yeah, getting a decent quantitative score on these tests is important. And the good news is, I guess, for candidates who are with us today is that both the GMAT and the GRE are now shorter than they used to be because both exams have been kind of redesigned and revamped and they're shorter. So you don't, it doesn't take quite as long to take them as it used to. Let's move on though to our next question, which we have from the audience as well. This one is about work experience. And I'm going to ask Morgan from Fuqua over at Duke. Tell us, everyone knows that work experience is really important when you're applying to business school. And so I guess I'm just wondering, like, what is it that you're looking for when you see someone's, professional profile? What are you trying to assess?
Yeah, so every school might have requirements over like level of work experience or anything, but work experience is so important because when you're in the classroom, when you're in those discussions, you're going to be able to pull from examples of your previous line of work. So if you were a consultant, something you worked on, anything like that. So that's why it is so important. And, as all of us talked about, like we want people from different backgrounds and people to bring their experiences to the classroom. And so when we're looking at an applicant's, whether it's their cover letter or their resume or the different aspects of their application, I often tell people like probably the resume you used to apply for your current job that probably lists like, here's my daily job responsibilities, might not really showcase you as a good MBA candidate. I often say that your resume should be a reflection of what have your achievements been in your career. I like to think of it as like a highlight reel. What was the really impactful things you've done to show what did you accomplish? Why does business school make sense? Because you've hit this limit where you feel an MBA is necessary, but what are some of the things that you've worked on that you're going to bring to that classroom experience? So it's so important to help advance or, enrich the classroom experience, but also when you're in the classroom, being able to say, oh, I remember working on something like this, or here's how that person with the MBA was able to navigate this. You're able to kind of reflect on what were you doing in a previous job. I think a lot of times people worry about their resume that if they are coming from one industry and looking to make a complete career change in an MBA program, like what is that going to look like? And the thing is you're not having to recruit for your post MBA job right now. So I think, present what has your achievement been? What have you accomplished? It's okay. I usually say to brag about yourself a little bit, just, do it with, humility in a way, but you can brag about yourself. What have you accomplished? What are great things you have done? And then it's once you get into your MBA program, you can work with the very career services at our schools that you can start kind of revamping your resume to go for that post MBA job.
Well said. Yeah, I think it is a real one of the most amazing things about doing an MBA is what you hear in the classroom from those around you who all are coming from these different backgrounds and sharing those experiences. So that's why as you guys look at files, it's important to make sure that someone's bringing that sort of stuff to the table. Next question up is for Melissa over at Goizueta. So this is about letters of recommendation, and I know, all of you require at least one, if not two letters, and so, yeah, just, what think about the most effective ones that you've seen in your career, like, not just good, but really great. What made them stand out?
I think there's a combination to a great letter of recommendation in that number one, I think the writer of the recommendation truly knows the candidate. And oftentimes we can get these recommendations that maybe sure, they know them, but maybe they haven't deeply worked with them. Maybe they don't have as much information on what their work style is like. And I think those great recommendations come from people that you have worked on a project with, somebody that you've interacted with, who understands what you've done and understands your goals. I do also think that great letters of recommendation are written by people who are involved in a collaborative process. And we often encourage our candidates to not just blindly send a request for a letter of recommendation. This is something that takes some time to develop, and you should be meeting with your letter of recommendation writer to review your resume with them, to kind of explain why you want to go to graduate school. I think it's really healthy for both parties to be involved and for you not to tell them what to write, but just to give them an overview, because usually a manager has several direct reports. They have a lot of things going on. And so just sitting with them for a minute and kind of saying, hey, remember last summer when we worked on this project and I did XYZ, can be really helpful for them to be able to write a great letter of recommendation. And I think that that's probably the biggest component, is that genuine knowledge of the candidate. And sometimes I think candidates fall into the trap of thinking, well, I know this senior alum that went to the school.
Yeah.
They don't really know me, but they did go to the school. And I think that will carry more weight. We find that letters of recommendation that are written by people who know you and know how you work are the best letters of recommendation.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I'm so glad that you pointed out that it's not a question of putting your recommender's name and email address into the online system and then for being like, okay, I'm done with that. It's on their terms now. You really need to sit down with them. And I mean, just imagine, even if they wrote something really great about you, but they suggested that you had a great future in career X when all of your essays are talking about career Y, right? So you need to make sure that they're on the same page as you and know why you're going to business school and all that good stuff. And yeah, please avoid, as you say, like picking that senior person who happens to have an affiliation to the school you're applying to, but really doesn't know you very well. So great advice, Melissa. Let's go on to our next question, which is for Anne. And this is about fit. People always talk about fit in the admissions process. Like, are you a good fit with the school? Is the school a good fit for you? And it's sort of this elusive, kind of hard to define thing. But what about for you and the team at Georgetown McDonough? Like, what does fit look like to you, and how do you assess it?
Absolutely. So at Georgetown McDonough, we are assessing you on 3 verticals, and I'm going to hone in on 2 out of the 3 more. So the 3 verticals of assessment are your academic preparedness and readiness, to make sure that we are setting you up to be successful in the classroom. The second vertical is your professional and recruitment fit. So based on your background and what you're hoping to achieve post MBA, are we the missing piece at Georgetown McDonough? So of course, we're wanting you to make a career change. The MBA is the catalyst. It's a big driver for why you're coming to us. So we're looking at our bench strengths of our recruitment, our placement, our recruitment partners, as well as your background, transferable skills, as well as history, seeing where we have seen successes of students making these changes. So we are trying to make an informed best guess if you are going to be happy with your placement at Georgetown McDonough. And fortunately, I can say we have a great history there, but it's because in admissions, we need to filter for that. And then the third vertical of assessment is your community and cultural fit, which we've talked about previously. But again, just to reiterate, we're looking for evidence that you would thrive in our environment. Not only will you be happy, but again, you'll thrive. We're the kind of environment, because of our service mindedness, where students are tutoring one another. So we have chartered accountants who are setting up office hours for our intro to accounting course and teaching their fellow students something beyond what the professor, a perspective beyond the professor can do. Or we have students who are sharing interview questions for an internship offer or a job offer because they're saying, hey, if you're better suited for the position, why wouldn't I want you to be successful? So Georgetown McDonough is the place where those things happen every day. And again, it's not for everyone. So if this resonates with you, if you believe in the service-minded culture, then this could be a place where you really thrive.
Got it. Excellent. Yeah, I think that's a really useful description for people to think through as they embark on this process of determining their fit and making sure their applications are effective. We have one more question, and then we're going to zip through a lightning round of stuff before we send you off into your breakouts. And this is for Stacy at UT Austin McCombs. I wondered when it makes sense for someone to do some additional academic coursework before they apply to business school. And the reason I mentioned that is because we were talking about quantitative readiness, like are you ready to hit the ground running in an MBA program? And some people may have a non-traditional background and think that, oh, maybe I need to take a class in statistics or intro to accounting or even economics. When who is that good for? And yeah, any kind of recommendations that you would kind of put forth?
Yeah. So I'll preface by saying I think I'm going to answer for myself only because I do think schools may have differing viewpoints on this particular subject. So keep that in mind. I think the thing that I struggle with this particular subject in terms of like taking additional quant coursework is a lot of applicants will default to signing up for MBA math if they don't do well on the first attempt of their exam. And my advice is always first focus on the GMAT or the GRE exam. If you've only taken it once, usually, most students are taking it 2 to 3 times to really get their optimal score. So don't use, for example, MBA math kind of as a quote unquote replacement for maybe lower test score because it's not necessarily apples to apples for admission. However, all that said, if you would like to take some quantitative coursework for yourself personally to better prepare yourself for the quantitative rigor, highly recommend. There are some great ones out there. GMAC has business fundamentals now. Some schools may even offer that to incoming students with, not a lot of quant in their background. I would probably wager a guess that most, if not all, top business schools have some sort of boot camp or enrollment program that they offer for students exactly for that reason, because not all of our students are coming from a quantitative major or quantitative background. We have history majors in the class that haven't taken a quant class in a very long time. So signing up for those optional boot camps is a really great idea. But don't use, those quantitative courses as just a substitute for maybe a lower test score that you're not confident in. Like I said, it's not necessarily apples to apples in that case.
Wow, I'm really glad that you make that point because I think it's something that we say all the time on the podcast we do or even on the website that, yeah, if you've taken the test once and you didn't hit the mark, you need to probably take it a second time, and it's quite
Yep,
common, and the schools don't, you're not discriminating against someone for taking a test multiple times. In fact, if
definitely not.
anything, it
It's the
shows
opposite.
tenacity.
Yep.
So, all right. So I still want to, we have 5 minutes left before you guys go into your individual breakouts. And I still want to try to do these kind of lightning questions, but what I think I'll do, we'll just ask you guys to be really concise. And we're going to start with you, Stacy, because we've been going alphabetically by school name and you've been last every time. So we're going to start with you. Describe your admissions team in 3 words.
Oh, I love my admissions team. Fun is the main one. We're super fun, hardworking and accessible.
Okay. And actually, I think just for the interest of time, I'm going to stay with you and we'll just do all 3 lightning round questions in a row. So the next
Cool.
one is when people use the wrong school name in an essay, like they apply to McCombs and they've left McDonough in their essay or so, whatever it is. That's like cringy, right? But
Yeah.
what's another like admissions process don't?
Ooh. Be cognizant of your background for both interviews and or videos, please.
Your back, like literally your
Okay.
background, like what's behind
Like
you.
what's
Okay.
behind you? Yes,
Yeah. Okay.
we've seen some doozies.
All right, excellent. And then our final lightning round question is tell us about something that you're looking forward to that's going to be happening on campus at
Oh,
McCombs.
that's easy because graduation for our MBAs is this Friday.
Oh,
So
awesome. Okay.
I'm very
That
much looking
sounds like
forward to
fun.
that. Yeah.
All right, so we'll continue backwards through the alphabet. So now we're going to talk with Anne at Georgetown. Again, admissions team, 3 words.
And I crowdsourced this from my team too. So we had a list, but I narrowed it down to empathetic, capable, and communicative.
Oh, nice. That sounds great. Our next question, something, that's an admissions process don't.
Sure. Not following instructions in the application components. For example, our video essay is 1 minute in length. If someone submits it and it's 3 minutes, we're like, they didn't even see that note. So just make sure to read
Oh,
those kinds of details.
yeah, great advice. And then finally, anything you're looking forward to at Georgetown?
Yeah, similarly to what Stacy said, graduation. And one of the reasons I love it is we put up inside the business school the flags of every single country that's represented by our students. And it's like through all the levels. And we have an open floor plan in the school. And so you see families and students taking pictures in front of their flag for their country. It's a way for us to be inclusive and welcoming of people traveling in.
Oh, that's so cool. All right, Melissa, you're up. Goizueta, tell me about the admissions team in 3 words.
Yeah, so I picked passionate, interested, and fun. Like Stacy, we have a super fun team. I love my team too. And I think I used passionate and interested because I've never seen people so irrationally passionate about getting to know people and helping them get into an MBA program.
Excellent. All right, next up, just one piece of advice about something people shouldn't do.
Please use our website. We all have these great websites that have so much information and chat bots and things that you can, like, all of us put when we're going to release our decisions. So every time we get, emails from folks who are like, when can I expect to get my decision? It's right there on the website. Please use our websites.
Okay, excellent. And then last but not least, anything you're looking forward to that's going to be happening on campus at the business school?
Yeah, we have graduation this Friday too, but I am going to go with our Super Summer Kegs event. Kegs is a weekly event here that stands for Keeping Everyone at Goizueta Social. And in the summer, we invite anyone who is here in Atlanta doing an internship, no matter what school they're at, to come to our campus to network with each other and to enjoy some refreshments out in the Georgia sun. So it's a super fun way for all of the students to expand their networks. And it's a great time.
Excellent. All right, Morgan, tell us how you would describe your team in 3 words.
So I would say we are fun, collaborative, and very applicant vested. We really do, we do office hour calls and much like Melissa just explained, like we really do take a lot of time to get to know you, the applicant.
Okay. And then something that you don't like to see in the admissions process?
Oh gosh. I think one thing, gosh, everyone has stolen mine too. And I just have one at the top of my head. I think the biggest one is, don't just take another school's essay and just try and change the school name. Like a lot of our essay questions are very different. We've picked them very strategically. So don't try and like write one essay and shoehorn it in to fit every other
Yes.
school. Like take the time to like look at our essay prompts. There's a reason why we are wording it the way we are wording it.
And I would add, you all are familiar with each other's essay prompts, so you can sometimes spot when someone has done this and know that they're using some other school's essay. So, yeah, great advice. And then finally, anything that you're looking forward to over at Fuqua?
Yeah, so like the other schools, we have graduation. But I think what's really exciting for us is I really look forward to orientation just because, some of these people that I've been working with, I haven't ever had the chance to meet face to face. And so it might be the first time that I actually like get to meet them and see them on campus and truly like, give them a good Durham, North Carolina welcome. So I'm looking forward to
Oh,
orientation
that's
in
right.
July.
Okay, that sounds good. And then finally, Nicole, the Haas team in 3 words.
I would describe our team as very diverse, very caring, and very supportive. I think we all
Okay,
just help each other as much as possible.
excellent.
Um,
And then a
and
piece of
then,
advice about something people shouldn't do.
yeah, so I would say mine is kind of a combo between what Morgan and Anne said, but simply just if don't not answer a question, I guess. That's a double negative, but so basically, like Morgan was saying, if you're going to use the same essay, like our essay is pretty specific, like what makes you feel alive when you're doing it and why. Like your response should say, X makes me feel alive. And if it doesn't, we're going to assume that that's just a a reused essay. Or also like if there is, an extracurricular portion of the application itself, like fill it out, because that's just another opportunity for you to give us more information about yourself, and don't just assume like, oh, it's on my resume, no big deal, you can read about it there. It's like, it
Right.
just shows us that you're maybe rushing through the application and not spending a lot of time and really being thoughtful about putting those responses into the application itself.
Okay. Yeah, really good advice. And then finally, anything that you're looking forward to at Haas?
So we also have commencement, but I think what we're looking forward to is we just had a new chancellor appointed at UC Berkeley,
Mm-hmm.
and he will be starting on July 1st. And it is Rich Lyons, who is a former dean from Haas. So, we're all very excited because we all have close relations with him. He was dean from 2008 to 2018, so a decade. He's actually the one that codified our defining leadership principles. Since 2018, he is the chief innovation and entrepreneurship officer at Berkeley. It's a brand new position that he started. So we're all very excited to see kind of the energy and the innovation that he'll bring to the role of leading UC Berkeley.
And he might have a soft spot for the business school given
Correct.
his past affiliation. All right. So I really appreciate everyone's time. What we're going to do next is each of our panelists is going to bounce off into these little Zoom breakouts. And we'll let you, the audience, join them, but just hold with me a second so that we can let them get settled into their breakouts before you all rush in and ask them questions that I'm sure you have for them. So I think they can get there. If I hope I'm not going to say the wrong thing, but I think they can get there by heading backstage and then heading in. But we'll give them instructions. But they're going to bounce off. So thank you so much, Nicole, Melissa, Morgan, Ann, and Stacy. Really appreciate your time. And as for those of you who joined us today, you're in such great shape starting this process so early. It's really terrific. And I just wanted to give you a couple of words of advice before you bounce off into the individual breakouts and talk to the schools. The first advice is, because we've got time until the first rounds, like if you're taking standardized tests, aim for high scores. High scores will help you be a competitive candidate. Sometimes they result in more financial aid as well. So just do your best to get those exams out of the way. And as Stacy mentioned in the session, like, if you don't get the score you want, you can take the test again. There's no harm in that. There's no stigma associated with it. Obviously apply in the round when your application is at its best. If possible, that should be early in the cycle, because there are always more spaces available as you apply early. And then, as many of our guests said, engage in the community as you research these programs. Talk to current students, use their websites. They have so many ways and methods for you to get to know these programs. So do that. And that will help you with number 4 here, which is to demonstrate interest in these programs. Because if you've gotten to know them well, it'll be that much easier to show why you're excited. We've got all the breakout rooms running. You should be able to bounce in. I did want to mention that we're doing this in 2 weeks time and then 3 weeks time. So we have a whole bunch of other schools, including Wharton and London Business School, Columbia, UVA Darden. I can't remember all the schools, but we're doing 2 more of these. There's not one next week, so the slide's actually incorrect. There's one the week after next, and then the week after that. And last thing is a shout out. If anyone is in Chicago, we are next week doing something in person in Chicago with 21 leading business schools. You can learn more about that over on our website. And I encourage all of you to use the ApplyWire tool on our website as well, where you can submit your profile and get like a free review from our community. So with that, I encourage you to bounce off into the individual breakouts that we have. You can, pepper our admissions guests with questions. I'm sure they'd love to hear from you. And the breakout rooms are now open. So enjoy, and I hope to see you all in 2 weeks' time, so you can join us for another session with another great group of schools. Have a great evening, afternoon, or rest of your morning, depending on where you're joining us from. But thank you so much for all your time today, everyone, and enjoy your conversations with the schools now.